Sybil and Arthur Burley. Now, a lot of you won't probably have seen much in the round. The difference is, if you look at something on stage, most of the actors, if they're doing the job right, most of the time should be facing the audience. Now tonight, because you're far closer to where it happens, there might be somebody standing in front of you for a time, you might see somebody's back for quite a while, it doesn't matter, they'll move around. But the whole atmosphere is that you're in the dining room with the cast, and the reaction we've had over the last 2 nights has been just that. So enjoy yourselves. The play consists of 3 acts. Because of continuity, we've combined, or we've run act 1 and act 2 together, with a slight dip of the light between those 2. Therefore, the interval is about 2/3 of the way through the play, after about 1 hour 15, just so you know. Bit of housekeeping. Fire exits are there, steps are in to get out, all through the main doors the way you came in. Please make sure your phones are turned off. And I scheduled this play before the Village Firework display was scheduled. I felt like changing the play to Oh What a Lovely War for the sound effect. If there are any, please, you won't need them anyway, just to say, we did it first, we showed you that. Enjoy the play?
Excellent.
And you should like this port, Gerald. Finchley says it's the same one as he supplies to your father.
Then I'm sure it'll be fine. The governor prides himself on his knowledge of port. I don't pretend to know much about it myself.
Well, I should jolly well think not. I would hate you to be a good judge of port, like one of these purple-faced old men.
Here, I'm not a purple-faced old man.
I know, but then you don't know all about port, do you?
Come along, Sybil. You'll take a drop tonight, won't you? Special occasion and all.
Very well then, just a little.
What do you think then, Gerald? First class.
Very good.
Thank you. All right then, Edna. I'll ring you when we want coffee from the drawing room. Probably about half an hour.
Yes, Mum.
Well, this is nice. This is very nice. Excellent dinner too. You must tell cook from me.
Absolutely first class.
Arthur, you know you're not supposed to say such things.
Come on, I'm treating Gerald like one of the family now. And I'm sure you'll not object, will you, Gerald?
Oh, yes, go on, just you object.
I wouldn't dare. In fact, I insist on it. I mean, after all, I've been trying long enough, haven't I? Haven't I? You know I have.
Well, of course she does.
Well, yes, except for all last spring and summer when you never came near me, and I wondered what had happened to you.
I've told you, we were awfully busy at the works all of that time.
Well, yes, so you say.
Now, don't tease him, Sheila. When you're married, you'll realise that men with important work to do sometimes have to spend nearly all their time and energy on their business. Now, you'll just have to get used to it, just like I had.
I don't believe I will. So you be careful.
No, I will. I will.
Now what's the joke?
Nothing. Really. I just suddenly felt like I had to laugh.
You're squiffy.
What an expression, Sheila. Really, the things you girls pick up these
I
days.
think that's the worst that she can do.
Oh, don't be an ass, Eric.
Now stop it, you two. Now then, Arthur, what about this famous toast of yours?
Oh, yes, of course. Well, Gerald, I know you agree that we should just have this small private celebration. Well, it's a pity that Sir George and Lady Croft couldn't be here, but, well, they're abroad, and so well, it can't be helped. But like I said, they did send a really nice cable. It couldn't have been nicer. So I'm not sorry that we're celebrating in this quiet way.
That's much nicer, really.
I agree.
Well, except that, of course, it does make speech-making rather difficult.
Well, don't make any then. We'll just drink to their health and be done with it.
We will not, young Eric. Perhaps one day when you've a daughter of your own, you might understand. I'm going to speak frankly to you now, Gerald, and say that this engagement means a lot to me. And I know that you're going to make each other very happy. You see, you are just the kind of son-in-law that I would have wanted. Your father and I have been friendly rivals in business for some time now. Now, of course, Croft and Company is a much bigger and older than Burling and Company. But now, you brought us together. And I hope we can look forward to a time of increasing cooperation, working together to increase prices and reduce costs.
Here, here. And I'm sure my father would agree with that.
Arthur, I really don't think you should talk business at a time like this.
No, neither do I. It's all wrong.
Oh, I only mentioned it in passing. Anyway, look, what I wanted to say was, well, I think Sheila's a very lucky young woman. And you, Gerald, are a very fortunate young man.
I believe I am. This once, anyhow.
So, here's wishing the best of you, the both of you, the very best that life can bring. Gerald and Sheila.
Yes, Gerald. Yes, Sheila, darling. Our congratulations and very best wishes.
Thank you.
Eric?
All the best to you both. She's got an evil temper sometimes, but she's all right most of the time. Good old Sheila.
Chum, I can't drink to this, can I? When do I drink?
You can drink to me.
All right then. I drink to you, Gerald.
Thank you. And I drink to you. And I hope I can make you as happy as you truly deserve to be.
You be careful, or I'll start weeping.
Well, perhaps this will help you stop.
Oh, Gerald! Oh, you got it! Oh, is it the one you wanted me to have?
The very one.
Oh, isn't it wonderful? Mummy, isn't it a beauty? Oh, Gerald.
Steady the buffs.
Oh, I think it's perfect. Now I really feel engaged.
And so you should. It's a lovely ring, darling. Now be careful with it.
Careful. I never intend to let it out of my sight for an instant.
It came just at the right moment. That was clever of you, Gerald. And now, Arthur, if you've no more to say, I think Sheila and I will retire to the drawing room and leave you men to...
Wait a minute, before you go. Sit down. There's just something that I wanted to say. Are you listening to me, Sheila? This involves you as well, you know.
Actually, I was listening, Daddy.
It's not often I get the chance, is it, to make a speech at you? See, the thing is, what I wanted to say was, this engagement of yours has made me really happy. There's a lot of silly talk about these days, but, and I speak now as a hard-headed businessman, as deals in facts and takes risks and knows what he's about. And I say you can ignore all this silly, pessimistic talk. When you two get married, you'll be marrying at a very good time. And it's going to get better. Just because the miners went on strike a couple of months ago, people start to say we're in for a period of labour unrest, of trouble with unions and so forth. Well, I say forget it, because we're past the worst. We employees are finally getting together in pursuit of our own interests and looking after capital. And I say we're in for a time of steadily increasing prosperity.
I believe you're right, sir.
But what about war?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Eric. Just because the Kaiser makes a few silly speeches and a few German officers have too much to drink and start talking nonsense, everybody says war with Germany is inevitable. Well, I say fiddlesticks. Germans don't want war. Nobody wants war. Except perhaps a few states in the Balkans, half-civilized folk. Look, what good is war to anybody? There's everything to be lost and nothing to be gained with war.
In Even so, but what about,
You be quiet, Eric. You're young yet. You've not had the experience I've had. And when I say this, just look at the progress that's being made around the place. The way the world's going, war's practically impossible. Take the motor car, for instance. Automobile. It's getting bigger and faster all the time. And aeroplanes. Soon aeroplanes will be able to go just about anywhere in the world. And then there's ships. A friend of mine looks over this new one, the Titanic, a couple of months ago. 46,800 tons. Think of that! 46,800 tons. New York in 5 days. And unsinkable. That's what you got to look to. Progress like that. Not a few silly German officers having too much to drink and spouting nonsense. Now, you listen to me, you young people, and remember now what I say. In 20, maybe 30 years' time, you could be sitting around a table like this, having a little party. Or maybe you'll be celebrating your daughter's or your son's engagement. And I'll tell you by then, you'll be living in a world where all this labour versus capital nonsense is all forgotten. And all these silly little squabbles and wars and talk of wars will all be a thing of the past. There'll be peace and prosperity everywhere. Except, well, perhaps in Russia, of course, which will always be a bit backwards way, naturally.
Huh?
I don't hear, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much, aren't I? But listen, what you young people must know is, don't let these George Bernard Shawses and H.G. Wellses do all the talking for you. We hard-headed businessmen have got a thing or two to say. And we don't guess. We deal in facts. We know.
Yes, of course, dear. Now, don't keep Geraldine here for too long, will you? Eric, I want you a minute.
Can I get you a whiskey, perhaps, St. Gerald?
Oh, a little bit early. Perhaps later on. Thanks.
I think I might have one. Listen, I'm glad we've had the chance of a few moments together. Sit down. It's just something I wanted to mention to you. Get in confidence. You see, the thing is, I've a notion that your mother, Lady Croft, well, why she doesn't actually perhaps take offence or object to my daughter, I just wonder if perhaps, or maybe she feels that she's a little bit beneath you, and socially.
No, not at all, sir.
No, don't worry. The thing is, well, she's from an old family, isn't she? Land and so forth. So, I'm not surprised. But I just thought I'd better let you know that, well, the thing is, I think I may be in for something in the next honours list. Only a night of mind.
Oh, I say, congratulations.
No, it's a bit early for that yet. But, well, there have been rumours. You see, I remember a couple of years ago I was Lord Mayor for the royal visit, and I've always been regarded as a sound party man. So I gather there's a very good chance, provided we behave ourselves, keep out of police court, avoid scandals, that sort of thing.
You seem a very well-behaved family to me, sir.
We like to think we are.
If that's the only objection, then please accept my congratulations now.
Thank you, Gerald, but it is a bit early yet, so it's not rather you didn't say anything just yet.
Not even to my mother. She'd be absolutely delighted.
Well, look, perhaps when she gets back, you could just drop a hint or two, perhaps. And then tell her that we promise to behave ourselves for the next 6 months or so.
Yes, of course.
What's the joke? Started telling stories?
No. Help yourself to another thought.
Thank you, I will. Although, Mother says we mustn't be too long. I wouldn't worry though. I've left them talking about clothes. Honestly, women are absolutely potty about them. You think a girl ever had clothes before she got married?
Listen, Gerald, What you need to realise, young lad, is that clothes mean something different to a woman. They're more than something just to cover them up or make them look pretty, keep them warm. They're like a symbol of their self-esteem.
That's true.
Yes, I remember. What do you remember?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Sounds a bit fishy to me.
You don't know what these young boys get up to today. It's a little bit different to when I was Eric's age. Used to work as hard in those days and keep us short of brass. Mind you, we broke out and had a bit of fun sometimes.
I'll bet you did.
But listen, the thing is this, and I don't want to start lecturing you two young lads again, but what you must remember is this. In these times when things are so much easier, is that a man's got to look after himself and look after his family when he has one. The way these writers and cranks talk these days, well, you'd think we all ought to be helping each other out all the time, all mixed up like bees in a hive. Community, they call it. Well, I say this, if a man looks after his own, minds his own business, then he'll not go far wrong.
Somebody at the front door?
It's all right, everyone will get it. We'll just have another glass of port. Pass it to your lad. Have another glass of port, and then we'll go and join the ladies. And perhaps that will stop me from giving you good advice.
Yes, Pilot's on rather thick tonight, Father.
Well, just feeling contented, that's all. I thought you might benefit from my experience.
Please, sir, an inspector has called.
An inspector? Well, what kind of inspector?
A police inspector, sir. He says his name is Inspector Gould.
I've never heard of him. Does he want to see me?
Yes, sir. He said it's very important.
Best show him in then. And give us a bit more light, would you? I'm still on the bench, you see. I expect it'll be about a warrant.
Sure to be. Unless Eric's been up to something. Be a bit awkward, wouldn't it?
Very.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, nothing. Something we were talking about when you were out. It's a joke, really.
Yes. Well, I don't find it very funny.
What is the matter with you?
Nothing.
Inspector Gould.
Mr. Burling,
Good evening, Inspector. Sit down, won't you?
thank you, sir.
You're new, aren't you?
Yes, only recently transferred.
Yes, I thought so. I'm a magistrate, you know. I was Lord Mayor a couple of years ago. So I know most of the police officers in Bromley. I thought I'd not seen you before.
Quite so.
But what can I do for you? Oh, would you like a drink? That was very rude of me.
No, I'm on duty, thank you.
Yes, of course. Well, what can I do for you then? It's about a warrant.
No, Mr. Burling.
Well, what is it then?
I'd like some information, if you don't mind, Mr. Burling. 2 hours ago, a young woman died in the infirmary. She'd been taken there this afternoon, having swallowed a large dose of strong disinfectant. Burned her insides out, of course.
God.
Yes. She was in great agony, and although the infirmary did everything they could for her, she died. Suicide, of course.
Nasty business, I'm sure, Inspector. I don't see why you've come here.
Yes, I've been round to the room that she had, found a letter she wrote and a sort of a diary. Like a lot of young women who get into various kinds of trouble, she'd used more than one name. But her real name, her original name, was Eva Smith.
Eva Smith.
Do you remember her, Mr. Burling?
Seem to recall the name, but it doesn't mean anything to me.
Yes, well,
So I don't see.
she was employed in your works at one time.
Oh, that's it, is it? Well, Inspector, we've got hundreds of girls, there you go. They keep changing all the time.
This young woman, Eva Smith, was a little out of the ordinary. I found a photo of her at a lodgings. Perhaps you remember her from that.
Any particular reason why I shouldn't see that photograph, Inspector?
There might be.
And I suppose the same applies to me, does it?
Yes.
Can't imagine what it can be.
Neither can I.
No, and neither can I.
Well, it's like I like to go to work like that. One line of inquiry, one person at a time. Otherwise, there's a muddle.
Very sensible, I suppose. Eric, you've had enough of that report.
I think you remember Eva Smith now, don't you, Mr. Burley?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do remember her. She was an employee of mine and I discharged her.
Is that why she committed suicide? When was this, Father?
Be quiet, Eric. Don't get excited. All of this happened nearly 2 years ago. It would have been autumn of 1910.
Yes, the end of September 1910.
That's right.
Look here, sir. Wouldn't you rather I wasn't here?
I've no objection to you staying, Gerald, if the inspector doesn't mind. This is Mr. Gerald Croft. He's the son of Sir George and Lady Croft. You know, Crofts Limited?
Mr. Gerald Croft, eh?
As a matter of fact, we were just modestly celebrating his engagement to my daughter, Sheila.
Ah. So Mr. Gerald Croft is to marry Miss Sheila Burley.
I hope so.
Then I'd prefer you to stay.
Look,
Oh, very well.
oh look, Inspector, there's nothing mysterious or sinister about any of this, you know. It's all perfectly straightforward, at least as far as I'm concerned. And anyway, look, it all happened nearly 2 years ago. It can't have had anything to do with a suicide, now can it?
I'm afraid I can't agree with you there, sir.
Why not?
Because what happened to her then may have determined what happened to her afterwards. And what happened to her afterwards may have driven her to suicide. Sort of chain of events.
Well, I suppose if you put it like that, then there's perhaps in something in what you say. But look, I can't be held responsible, can I? For goodness sake, if we were all responsible for everything that ever happened to anybody that ever had anything to do with us, it would be pretty awkward, wouldn't it?
Very awkward.
Watch out,
It would be an impossible situation, wouldn't it?
And as you were saying earlier, Father, if we all had to look out for each other.
Well, I don't think we need to go into that just now, do we?
Go into what?
Before you came, I was just giving these two young gentlemen some good advice. Now look, Inspector, the thing is, I do remember this Eva Smith now. She was a good-looking lass, as I recall, country-bred, I fancy. Good worker, too. Foreman says she was ready to be made up to what we call a senior operator, and that's in charge of a group of girls. But when they came back from their summer holidays, that would be in the August, well, they were all a bit restless. So they started to demand an increase in wages. Now, we pay 22 and 6 for an average week. When they came back, they were demanding an increase to 25 shillings. So, I refused, of course.
Why?
Did you say why?
Yes, why did you refuse?
I'm sorry, Inspector, but I don't see that it's any concern of yours how I run my business now, is it?
It might be, you know.
I don't like that tone.
Well, I'm sorry, but you asked me a question.
And you asked me a question, and a completely unnecessary one at that.
Yes, well, it's my duty to ask questions.
And it's my duty to keep costs down. If I'd acceded to this demand, it would have increased our wage bill by 12%. So does that satisfy you? Anyway, I refused. I said I couldn't countenance it. I said if they didn't like the wages they were getting and didn't like where they were working, they could clear off and work somewhere else. It's a free country, and I told them.
City, you can't go and work somewhere else.
Quite so.
Be quiet, Eric. You weren't even at the works when this happened. Anyway, they went on strike. That didn't last long, of course.
Well, it wouldn't have done, was after the holidays. They'd all be broke if I know them.
You're quite right, Gerald. And so was the strike too after a couple of weeks. Pitiful affair. Anyway, after they came back, which we let them back, at their old wages, of course, we decided we'd get rid of the 4 or 5 ringleaders, so I went down to the factory floor and I threw them out myself. And this girl, Eva Smith, well, she was one of them.
You couldn't have
She
done...
too much to say for herself, and so she had to go.
You couldn't have done anything else.
Yes, he could. He could have kept her on. I call it tough luck.
Rubbish. If you don't come down on these people hard, then pretty soon they'll be asking for the earth.
I should say so.
Yes, but surely it's better to ask the earth than to take it.
What did you say your name was, Inspector?
Goole. G-O-O-L-E.
How well do you get on with our Chief Constable, Colonel Roberts?
I don't see much of him.
Well, I think perhaps you ought to know that he's a very good friend of mine. We frequently play golf together at Upper Bromley.
I don't play golf.
I didn't suppose that you would.
Well, I think it's a damn shame.
No, I've never wanted to play.
No. I mean about this girl, Eva Smith. Why shouldn't she try for the highest possible wages? I mean, we tried for the highest possible prices, and you said yourself she was a good worker. I wouldn't have sacked her. I'd have kept her on.
Look, if you don't sort yourself out, you'll never be in a position to either take somebody on or to sack them. It's about time you learned a sense of responsibility. Something that this varsity and public school life you've had doesn't seem to have taught you.
I don't think we need to tell the police inspector about that, do we?
I don't think we need to tell the inspector anything. I've told him everything I know. It doesn't amount to much. So, what happened to this girl after she left? Do you know? Did she get into trouble? Go onto the streets or what?
No, she didn't exactly go onto the streets.
What's all this about streets? I'm sorry, I didn't know. Mother asked me to find out why you didn't come along to the drawing room.
Oh, we'll be along in a moment, dear. We're just finishing.
No, I'm afraid not.
Look, there's nothing more. I've just told you that.
What's all this about?
Nothing. Just run along. It's nothing to do with you.
No, wait a minute, Miss Burley.
Now look, Inspector. I consider this to be highly officious and unpleasant. I've a damn good mind to report you. I see no reason why my daughter should be mixed up in this unpleasant business.
What business?
I'm a police inspector, Miss Burley. This afternoon, a young woman drank a strong dose of disinfectant and died after several hours of agony in the infirmary tonight.
This is horrible. Was it an accident?
No, she wanted to end her life. She felt that she couldn't go on any longer.
Well, don't say that that's because I discharged her from my employment nearly 2 years ago.
That might have started it.
Did you, Father?
Yes. She'd been making trouble at the works. I was perfectly justified.
I believe you were. I know we'd have done the same. Don't go like that, Sheila.
I'm sorry, I just can't help thinking about this girl destroying herself so horribly. We were so happy tonight. I wish you hadn't told me. What was she like? Young?
Yes, she was 24.
Pretty?
Well, she wasn't pretty when I saw her today, but yes, she had been pretty, very pretty.
You can drop that.
Look here, Inspector. I really don't see where this inquiry is taking you. I mean, it's what happened to the girl after she left Mr. Burling's employment that's important.
Well, obviously. I think I mentioned that some time ago.
We can't help you there because we don't know.
Are you sure you don't know?
Wait a minute. Are you now saying that one of these knows something about this girl?
Yes.
So you didn't just come to see me then?
No.
Well, why the devil didn't you say so? I wouldn't have gone calling you officious, threatening to report me for doing that. You understand that, don't you, Inspector? I thought that for some reason, best known to yourself, you just wanted to make use of this tiny little bit of information I could give you. Oh, this makes all the difference, doesn't it? I'm sorry. So, are you sure of your facts?
Some of them, yes.
Well, I don't see as they amount to much.
The girl's dead, though.
What do you mean by saying that? You talk as if one of us were responsible.
That's enough, Sheila. But be quiet. Wouldn't it be best if perhaps we went into a corner and discussed
Why
this?
should you? He's finished with you. He thinks it's one of us now.
Yes, and I'm trying to settle it for you, sensibly.
There's nothing to settle as far as I'm concerned. I've never known an Eva Smith.
Neither have I.
What did you say her name was? Eva Smith. Never heard of it before.
So where are you now, Inspector?
Where I was before, Mr. Croft. Like I told you, like a lot of young women, she'd used more than one name. She was Eva Smith when Mr. Burling sacked her for wanting 25 shillings a week instead of 22 and sixpence. But she stopped being Eva Smith after that. Perhaps she'd had enough of it.
Can't say that I blame her.
I think it was a mean thing to do. It probably spoilt everything for her.
Rubbish. So, do you know what did happen to this girl after she left my work?
Yes, she was out of work for the next 2 months. And as both her parents were dead, she had no home to go to. And she hadn't been able to save much out of what Burling and Company had paid for. So, with no home, no job, no money coming in, few friends and relatives to help her, alone, half-starved, she was feeling desperate.
Oh, I should think so. I think it's a rotten shame.
There's a lot of young women living that sort of existence in every city and big town in this country, Miss Burling. If there weren't, then the factories and the warehouses wouldn't know where to go for their cheap labour. Ask your father.
But these girls aren't cheap labour. They're people.
I've had that notion myself from time to time. I thought it would do us all good to put ourselves in the place of these women, counting their pennies in their dingy, dark back bedrooms.
Yes, I expect so. But what happened to her then?
Oh, she had what she thought was a wonderful stroke of luck. She got herself a job in a shop. Good shop, too. Millward's.
Oh, Millward! We go there. In fact, I was there only this afternoon for your benefit.
That's good.
Yes, she was very lucky to be taken on at Millward.
Yes, that's what she thought, too. And it so happened that at that time, the beginning of December 1910, that there was a great deal of influenza around, and Millwards found themselves short-handed. So she took a chance. Seemed she enjoyed working there, made a pleasant change from the factory. And she enjoyed being amongst the pretty clothes, I've no doubt. She also felt that she was making a good, fresh start to her life. You can imagine how she felt.
Of course.
And she got herself into trouble there, I suppose.
Well, all she knew was that when she'd started settling down nicely after a couple of months, they told her she'd have to go.
Not doing her work properly.
No, there's nothing wrong with the way she was working. They admitted that.
Well, she must have done something.
All they knew was that a customer had complained and she had to go.
When was this?
Late January last year.
What did she look like?
You come over here, I'll show you.
What's the matter with her?
She recognised you from the photograph, didn't she?
Yes.
Well, why on earth did you want to go upsetting the girl like that?
No, I didn't do it. She's upsetting herself.
Well, why? Why?
I don't know yet. That's something I shall have to find out.
Yes, well, if you don't mind, I'll find out first.
Shall I go to her?
No, it's all right. I must go and tell Mrs. Burling what's going on. We were having a nice, quiet, private family celebration before you came. Nasty mess you've made of it now, haven't you?
That's just what I was thinking when I was looking at what was left of Eva Smith tonight. Nice, promising life there, I thought. A nasty mess somebody's made of it.
I'd like to have a look at that photograph now, Inspector.
All in good time.
But I don't see...
I told you, Mr. Croft. One person at a time, otherwise we're all speaking at once and we won't know where we are. If you have anything to tell me, You'll have your opportunity soon.
I don't suppose I have, but I just
Look
like...
here! I've just about had enough of this.
Yes, I dare say.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's just that we were having a nice, quiet family celebration here, and well, I've drunk rather a lot, including a lot of champagne, and now I've got a bit of a headache. So, considering I'm obviously only getting in the way here, I think it would be better if I turned in.
And I think you better stay.
Why should I?
Well, it might be easier. You turn in now, you'll only have to turn out again soon.
You're getting a bit heavy-handed, aren't you, Inspector?
Possibly, but if you're easy with me, I'm easy with you.
After all, you know, we're respectable citizens, not criminals.
Sometimes there isn't as much difference as you might think. Often, if it was left to me, I wouldn't know where to draw the line.
Fortunately, it's not left to you, is it?
No, it isn't. But some things are. Inquiries of this sort, for instance. Yes, Miss Burling.
You knew it was me all the time, didn't you?
I had an idea it might be from something the girl herself wrote, yes.
I've told Father about it, and he doesn't think it amounts to much, but I felt rotten about it at the time, and now I feel a lot worse. Did it make that much of a difference to her?
Yes, I'm afraid it did. It was the last real steady job she had, and when she lost it for no reason that she could discover, she decided to try another kind of life.
So I'm really responsible.
No, not entirely. A lot of things happened to her after that, but yes, you are partly to blame, as is your father.
But what did Sheila do?
I went into the manager at Millwards, and I told him that if he didn't get rid of that girl, that I would never set foot in the place again. And that I persuaded Mother to close our account with them.
And why did you do that?
Because I was in a furious temper.
Well, what had the girl done to put you in a temper?
When I was looking at myself in the mirror, I caught sight of her smiling at the assistant, and I was furious with her. I was in a bad temper anyhow.
Was it the girl's fault?
No, not really. It was my own fault. And you needn't look at me like that, Gerald. At least I'm trying to tell the truth. And I expect that you've done some things that you're ashamed of.
I suppose I have. I mean,
Yes,
it's not...
yes, look, you can settle this between you afterwards. Tell me what happened.
Well, I'd gone to try something on. It had been all my own idea. Mother had been against it, and so had the assistant. But I insisted. Well, as soon as I tried it on, I knew they'd been right. I looked silly in the thing. It just didn't suit me. Well, anyway, this girl bought the dress up from the workshop. And when the assistant, Miss Francis, asked her something about it, she held it up, as if she was wearing it. And well, it just suited her. She was the right type for it, just as I was the wrong type. She was very pretty. Big, dark eyes, and that didn't help much. Well, anyway, when I was trying it on and I knew it looked all wrong and it didn't suit me, I caught sight of this girl smiling at the assistant as if to say, oh, doesn't she look horrible? And well, I was furious with her. I was very rude to them both. And then I went to the manager and I told him that he'd got a most impertinent girl and that... How was I to know what would happen afterwards? And if she'd been plain, miserable sort of creature, then I don't think I would have done it. But she was extremely pretty, and she looked like she could take care of herself. I just couldn't feel sorry for her.
So, in a kind of a way, you could have been said to have been jealous of her.
Yes, I suppose so.
So, you used the power that you had as the daughter of a good customer and a man well known in the town to punish the girl for making you feel like that.
Yes, but it didn't seem very terrible at the time. Don't you understand?
Yes.
And if I could help her now,
Yes, but you can't. It's too late. She's dead.
It's a bit thick when you come to think
Oh,
of it.
shut up, Eric! I know! I know! And I've never done anything like that before. And I never shall again. You know, they look at me strangely now in Millwoods. Even this afternoon. I suppose some of them remember. I can never go in there again. Why did this have to happen?
That's what I was asking myself when I was looking at the dead girl tonight. And then I said to myself, well, we'll just have to try and understand how it happened. And that's why I'm here, and why I'm not going until I do find out. Eva Smith lost her job at Burling's because the strike failed and they were determined not to have another one. Then she got another job, under what name I don't know, in a big shop, and had to leave there because you were annoyed with yourself and passed that annoyance on to her. So, she decided to try something else. The first thing she did was change her name to Daisy Renton.
What?
I said she changed her name to Daisy Renton.
Mind if I give myself a drink, Sheila?
Where's your father, Miss Burley?
He's in the drawing room, telling Mother what's happening. Eric, take the inspector along to the drawing room. Well, Gerald,
Well, what, Sheila?
how do you know this girl? It's Eva Smith.
I didn't.
Daisy Renton, then. It's the same thing.
Why should I have known?
Oh, don't be so stupid. You're only wasting time. You gave yourself away the moment he mentioned another name.
All right, I knew her. Let's leave it at that.
No. You can't leave it at that.
She, darling.
No. No. You not only knew her, you knew her well. Otherwise you wouldn't look so guilty about it. So when did you first get to know her? Was it after she left Millwoods and changed her name and began that other kind of life? Were you seeing her last spring and summer when you were so busy you never came near me? Were you? Yes. Of course you were.
Sheila, I'm so terribly sorry. It was all over and done with last summer. I haven't set eyes on the girl for at least 6 months. I don't come into this suicide business.
Well, I didn't think I did half an hour ago.
You don't. Neither of us do. So for God's sake, don't tell the inspector.
What? About you and this girl?
Yes, we can keep it from him.
Oh, you fool. He knows. Of course he knows. And I'd hate to think what else he knows that we don't yet. Oh, you'll see. You'll see.
Well? Well?
You'll see. What did I tell you?
And what did you tell him?
Inspector, I think Miss Burling should be excused any more of your questions. Well, she's told you all that she knows, and, well, she's had a hard, exciting, but tiring day. And we've been celebrating our engagement, as you know, but now she's had about as much as she can stand. You heard her.
He means he thinks I'm getting hysterical now.
And are you?
Probably.
Well, I don't want to keep you here any longer. I've no more questions to ask you.
Yes, but you haven't finished asking questions, have you?
No.
You see? Well, then I'm staying.
Why would you stay? It's bound to be unpleasant and disturbing.
And you think that young women should be protected from unpleasant and disturbing things, do you?
Wherever possible, yes.
Well, we know one young woman that wasn't, don't we?
I suppose I asked for that.
Be careful that you don't ask for anything else, Gerald.
All I was trying to say, Sheila, is why stay when you'll know you'll hate it?
Because it can't get any worse for me. And it might get better.
I see.
What do you see?
You've been through it, and now you'd like to see somebody else put through it.
Oh. So that's what you think I'm like. Well, I'm glad I realised it in time.
No, I didn't mean to.
Yes. Yes, you did. Otherwise you couldn't have said that. You heard that nice story about me. I got that girl sacked from Millwood. And now you've made up your mind that I must be a selfish and vindictive creature.
I neither said that, nor
Then
even
why
suggested it.
say that you thought I wanted to see somebody else put through it? That's not what I meant at all.
All right. I'm sorry.
Yes. But you don't believe me. And it's just the wrong time not to believe me.
Allow me, Miss Burling. I'll tell you why Miss Burling wants to stay, and why she thinks it might be better if she did. Young girl died tonight, a pretty lively sort of a girl, who never did anybody any harm. But she died in misery and agony, hating life.
Yes, I know. And I can't stop thinking about it.
Yes, and now that Miss Burling understands what she did to this girl, she feels responsible. And if she goes now and doesn't hear anymore, she'll feel entirely to blame. And she'll be alone with that responsibility the rest of tonight, tomorrow night, and the night
Yes.
after that.
Yes, that's it. And I know I'm to blame. And I'm desperately sorry. I can't believe, I won't believe that it's simply all my fault that she committed suicide. That would just be too horrible.
Yes, you see, we have to believe in something. If we don't believe in anything, we have to trust in our own guilt.
Yes. That's true. You know. You know, I don't understand about you.
There's no reason why you should.
Good evening, Inspector.
Good evening, madam.
I'm Mrs. Burlington. My husband has explained why you're here, and while we'd be glad to answer any questions you may have, I don't think we can help you
Oh,
much.
Mother, please.
What's the matter, Sheila?
I know this sounds silly, but
Well, what does?
I just think you're going about this all wrong, and I'm afraid that you'll say something or do something that you'll be sorry for afterwards.
I don't know what you're talking about, Sheila.
so pleased with ourselves, so confident, until he began asking us questions.
You seem to have made a great impression on this child, Inspector.
Well, we often do on the young ones. They're more impressionable.
You're looking tired, dear. Now, why don't you just go to bed and forget about all this absurd business? You'll feel better in the morning.
No, I couldn't possibly. And nothing could be worse for me. We've settled all that. I'm staying here until we know what happened to that girl.
Nothing but morbid curiosity.
No, it isn't.
Don't contradict me, please, Sheila. And anyway, I don't see how we can begin to understand why, what happened to that girl and why she committed suicide. You see, girls of that class...
Mother, stop it. For your sake as well as ours, you really mustn't.
Mustn't what?
You must,
Really, Sheila?
you mustn't build up a wall between us and that girl. I mean, if you do, the inspector will only tear it down, and it'll be all the worse when he does.
I don't understand you. Do you?
Yes, and she's right.
I beg your pardon?
I said yes, I do understand her, and she's right.
Well, that I consider is a trifle impertinent, Inspector. Now what's the matter, Sheila?
I'm sorry, it's just the word impertinent is such a silly word.
In any case,
Mother, Mother, please do stop.
if you mean that the Inspector will take offence...
No, I never take offence.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Let's leave offence out of it, shall we?
I think we should.
So do I.
I think it would be rather us who should take offence. Now, I'm talking to the Inspector now. I realise you may have to conduct some sort of inquiry, but I must say that so far you seem to be doing it in an extremely offensive and impertinent manner. You do realise, of course, that my husband was Lord Mayor only 2 years ago, and that he's still a magistrate.
The Inspector is fully aware of all of those facts, and I don't think it'll do us any good to remind him of them.
No, it's crazy, Mother. Stop it, please.
Yes, now, what about Mr. Burling?
Oh, he's coming back in a moment. He's just talking to my son, who seems to be in an excitable, silly mood this evening.
What's the matter with him?
Eric? Oh, well, I'm afraid he's had a little too much to drink. You see, we were having a little celebration.
Yes, isn't he used to drinking?
Oh, no, of course not. He's only a boy.
No, he isn't. He's a young man. And some young men drink far too much.
Yes, and Eric's one of them.
Sheila!
Well, I don't want to get Eric into any more trouble. He's probably in enough as it is, but there really is no use in keeping up these silly pretences. It's no use pretending that Eric isn't used to drink. He's been drinking far too much for the past 2 years.
But it isn't true. But, Gerald, you know Eric, and you're a man. You must know it isn't true.
Well, Mr. Croft?
I'm afraid it is, you know. I don't meet Eric very often outside of the house, but, well, I've gathered that he does drink pretty hard.
And you choose this moment to tell me?
Of course. That's what I meant when I talked about building up bridges that are bound to be knocked flat. It makes it all the harder to bear.
But it's you, and not the Inspector here, who's doing it.
Yes, but don't you see? He hasn't started on you yet.
If necessary, I shall be quite glad to answer any questions the Inspector may have, although naturally I know nothing about this girl.
We'll see, Mrs. Burling.
I've been trying to persuade Eric to go to bed. Now he's telling me that you told him to stay on. Did you?
Yes, I did.
Why?
I shall want to talk to him, Mr. Burling.
Now look here, Inspector. I think we've had enough of this. I don't like your tone. I've told you that before. I don't like the way you're handling this investigation. And I don't propose to give you much more rope.
Well, he needn't give me any rope.
No, he's giving us the rope so that we'll hang ourselves.
What's the matter with this child?
She's overtired and she refuses to go. Well, come along, Inspector. What is it you want to know?
The end of January last year, Eva Smith was compelled to leave Millwards because Miss Burling here got her discharged. So she stopped being Eva Smith, looking for a job, and became Daisy Renton with other ideas. Mr. Croft, when did you first get to know her?
Where did you get the idea that I did know her?
You're only wasting time, Gerald.
The moment I mentioned the name Daisy Renton, it was obvious that you knew her.
Of course you did.
And anyhow, I already knew. When and where did you first meet her?
All right. If you must have it. I met her first of all last March. It was in the Stalls Bar of the Palace. That's the Palace Music Hall here in Bromley.
Well, I didn't think you meant Buckingham Palace.
Thanks. You're going to be a great help, I can see. You've said your piece, so why don't you just leave us to it?
Oh no, nothing could induce me. I want to know exactly what happens when a man says he's so busy at the works that he can hardly spend time to be with the woman he's supposed to be in love with. Oh no, I wouldn't miss this for the world.
Yes, come along, Mr. Croft. The Stalls Bar at the Palace Variety Theatre.
I happened to call in after a long, dull day at work. Well, the show wasn't very bright, so I went into the bar for a drink. I didn't intend to stay long. It's a well-known haunt of ladies of the town.
Ladies of the town?
Look, I don't think we need to mention that, do we? Not in front of...
Oh, I think it would be much better if Sheila didn't hear this story at all.
But you're forgetting, Mother, that I'm supposed to be engaged to the hero of it. So go on, Gerald. You went down into the bar, which is a favourite haunt of ladies of the town.
I'm glad I amused you.
Come on, Mr. Croft, what happened?
As I said, I didn't intend to stay long. I hate those hard-eyed, doe-faced women. Then I noticed a girl who was completely different. She was pretty, long brown hair and large dark eyes. My God.
What's the matter?
I'm sorry, I just suddenly realised. Taking it all in. She's dead.
Yes, she's dead.
Yes, and probably between us we killed her.
Oh, don't talk nonsense, Sheila.
You wait, Mother.
Go on.
She was young, pretty, charming. Altogether out of place down there. And she obviously wasn't enjoying herself. Old Joe Meggerty, half drunk and goggle-eyed, had got her wedged into a corner with that obscene fat carcass of
Well,
his.
there's no need to be disgusting. And surely you don't mean Alderman Meggerty?
Oh, of course I do. He's a notorious womanizer, one of the worst sots and drunks in Bromley.
Quite right.
Oh, really? Alderman Meggerty? We are learning something tonight.
Of course, but everyone knows about horrible old Meggerty. A girl I knew had to meet him in the town hall one afternoon, and, well, she only escaped with a torn blouse.
Sheila!
Go on, please.
Well, the girl saw me looking at her and gave me a glance that was nothing short of a cry for help. So I went over and told Joe Meggerty some nonsense. The manager got a message for him, something like that, to get him out of the way. And I told the girl that she didn't want any more of that sort of thing, and she'd better be prepared to leave with me at once. Of course, she agreed.
Where did you go?
We went to the county hotel. I knew it to be quiet there at that time of night. We had one or two drinks and talked.
Did she drink much at that time?
No. Bought some lemonade or some such concoction. She just wanted to talk. She was obviously shaken by the advances of Joe Meggerty. As well she might.
Did she talk much about herself?
Yes, I asked her questions about herself. She told me her name's Daisy Renton. That she'd lost both her parents and that she used to come from outside Bromley. She told me that she'd got a job at one of the works, but had to finish after a strike. She also mentioned working at one of the shops, but was very vague about what had happened. I tried to get her to give me some details of her past life, but all she wanted to do was to talk. Perhaps she realised I was interested and friendly. One thing was certain, she wanted to be Daisy Renton. She didn't want to be Eva Smith. In fact, I heard that name for the first time here tonight. One thing she did let slip, although she didn't mean to, was that she was desperately short of money, and at that time was actually very hungry. So I made the people at the county hotel get her something to eat.
And that's when you decided to keep her as your mistress.
What?
Of course. It was obvious from the start. Well, go on, Gerald. Don't mind Mother.
I discovered 2 days later, when we met again, this time not by accident, that she was actually penniless and was about to be evicted from some miserable back room that she had. As luck would have it, a friend of mine, Charlie Brunswick, had gone to Canada for 6 months and had given me the keys to a nice couple of rooms he had in Morgan Terrace. So I moved Daisy into those rooms and gave her a small allowance to keep her going while she was there. But you must understand, I didn't install Daisy in those rooms to make love to her. I moved her in because I felt sorry for her, and I didn't like the thought of her going back to the Palace Bar. I asked for nothing in return.
See.
Yes, but why are you saying this to him? You ought to be saying this to me.
I'm sorry. I suppose I should. Somehow he...
Yes. Somehow he makes you.
So she became your mistress.
I suppose it was inevitable. Very pretty, warm-hearted, intensely grateful. I suddenly became the most important person in her life. You understand?
Yes, she was a woman. She was lonely. Were you in love with her?
Yes, that's just what I was going to ask.
Oh, look, I really must protest.
Why should you protest? It was you who turned her out in the first place.
I only did what any employer would have done in the circumstances. And anyway, what I was going to say was, I protest that my daughter, a young unmarried girl, is being dragged into all of this.
Your daughter isn't living on the moon, Mr. Burling. She's here in Bromley too.
Yes, and don't forget it was I who had her turned out for a job in the first place. And I'm supposed to be engaged to Gerald, and I'm not a child. I have a right to know. So go on, Gerald. Were you in love with her?
I don't know. I didn't feel about her the way she felt about me.
Of course not. You must have been her fairy prince. You must have adored it, Gerald.
All right. I did for a time. Nearly any man would have.
Well, that's the best thing you said tonight. At least it was honest. And did you go to her every night?
No, I wasn't telling you a complete lie when I said we were busy at the works. We were busy. But I did see a good deal of her.
Yes, well, I don't think we need any further details of this disgusting affair.
I don't think we've heard any details yet.
And you're not going to hear any. And you know, it wasn't disgusting.
It's disgusting to me.
Well, that's because you didn't come into it, did you, Mother?
Is there anything else that you need to know, that you ought to know?
Yes, when did this affair end?
I can tell you that exactly. It was in the first week of September. I had to go away for a few weeks on business, and Daisy knew that it was coming to an end, so I decided to end it completely before I left.
And how did she take it?
Better than I'd hoped. She was very gallant about it.
Well, that was nice for you.
No, it wasn't. She told me that she'd never been happier before in her life. But she knew that it couldn't last. Hadn't expected it to last. But that she didn't blame me at all. I wish to God she had. Perhaps I'd have felt better about it now.
But she had to move out of those rooms.
Yes, we'd agreed on that. She saved a little money from the amount I'd given her over the summer. She'd lived very economically, and she refused to take any more from me. But I insisted on giving her some money as a parting gift. Although it wasn't so very much.
Did she tell you what she proposed to do after you left her?
No, she wouldn't talk about it. But I gathered once or twice that she was thinking of moving away from Bromley. Whether she did or not, I don't know. Did she?
Yes, she went away for a couple of months to some seaside place.
By herself?
Yes, she needed to be alone and quiet to remember all that had happened between you.
How do you know all these things?
She left a sort of a diary. In it, she said she had to make it last longer because she felt that she would never have anything quite as good again. So she had to make it last longer.
I I can't help you anymore. I never saw her again.
That's all I want to know from you.
Thank you. I'm rather more upset by this than perhaps I appear to be. I'd be pleased if you'd let me go. I'd like to walk around for a while and just be on my own.
Go where? Home?
No, I just want to go for a walk. Be on my own. I'll come back, if that's all right.
All right, Mr. Croft.
Gerald, in case you forget, or you decide not to come back, I think you'd better take this with you.
I was expecting that.
I don't dislike you as much as I did half an hour ago. In fact, in a funny kind of way, I respect you more now. I knew you were lying about all those months that you were so busy at the works. I knew there was something fishy about it. And I believed what you said, but how you helped her. At first, just out of pity. And it was my fault that she came to you so desperate in the first place. And now at least you've been honest. But this has made a difference. We're not the same two people that sat to dinner together tonight. We'd have to begin again, getting to know each other.
Look, Sheila, now, look, I'm not trying to defend him. But what you must realise is...
Oh, stop interfering,
listen,
Father!
I'm not a young chap.
Gerald understands,
Yes,
but it appears that you don't.
I do understand. But I'll come back. It's all right.
All right.
Really? I think we've just about come to an end to this wretched business.
I don't think so. Excuse me.
You never did show him a photograph.
No, I didn't think it was necessary.
You have a photograph of this girl.
Yes. I think you'd probably better look at it.
Don't see any reason why I should.
Probably not, and I think you'd better look at it.
Very well.
You recognise her?
No? Should I?
Well, she might have changed somewhat lately, but I can't believe she's changed so much.
I don't understand you, Inspector.
You mean you choose not to, Mrs.
I
Burley?
meant what I said.
Then you're not telling me the truth.
Beg your pardon.
Right, that's enough. You'll apologise at once.
Apologise for what? Doing my duty?
No, but for being so damned unpleasant about it. I'm a public man.
Yes, and public men, Mr. Burley, have responsibilities as well as privileges.
You were not sent here to discuss my responsibilities.
Oh, I should hope not. Although I'm beginning to wonder.
Does that mean anything, Sheila?
Well, yes, it does. It means there's no use in keeping up these silly pretences. And if we've any sense, then we won't even try. Father, you had her thrown out of a job because she demanded decent wages, and I threw her further out into the street because I was in a furious temper. And now, Mother, you're pretending not to recognise her from the photograph, although you quite obviously do from the way you looked, though I've no idea why. And if you're not telling the truth, then why should the inspector apologise? And can't you two both see that you're just making things worse?
That's the door again.
Well, perhaps it's Gerald coming back.
Or maybe your son has gone out.
Better go and see her.
Mrs. Burley, you're a member, a prominent member of the Bromley Women's Charity Organisation, aren't you?
Well, you may as well admit it. Yes, she is. Why?
It's an organisation designed to give help to women in distress in various forms, isn't that so?
Yes. We've done a great deal of useful work in helping deserving cases.
There was a meeting of the interviewing committee some 2 weeks ago.
I dare say there was.
You know very well there was, Mrs. Burling. You were in the chair.
And if I was, what business is it of yours?
Do you want me to tell you in plain words?
That must have been Eric.
Have you been up to his room?
Yes, I've been up to both landings and called out. It must have been Eric we heard going out just then.
Silly boy, where can he have got to?
I don't know. He was in one of his silly, queer moods. Just as well we don't need him here, isn't it?
Yes, but we do need him here. And if he doesn't come back soon, I shall have to go and find him.
Oh, he's probably just gone to cool off. He'll be back.
I hope so.
And why should you hope so?
I'll explain that when you've answered my questions, Mrs. Burling.
Is there any reason, Inspector, why my wife should answer questions from you?
Yes, and a very good reason too. You'll remember that Mr. Croft told us, quite truthfully I believe, that he hadn't seen or spoken to Eva Smith since last September. Now, Mrs. Burling here saw and spoke to her only 2 weeks ago.
Mother!
Is this true, Sybil?
Yes, quite true.
She appealed to your organisation for help,
Yes.
but not as Eva Smith.
No. And nor as Daisy Renton.
As what then?
Well, first, she called herself Mrs. Burling.
Mrs. Burling?
Yes. I think it was a piece of gross impertinence on her part, quite deliberate. Naturally, that was one of the things that prejudiced me against her case.
But I should think so. Damned impudence.
So you admit being prejudiced against her case?
Yes.
Oh, she just died a horrible death, Mother, don't forget.
Yes, and I'm very sorry for it, but I think she had only herself to blame.
So was it owing to your influence as a prominent member of the committee that help was refused the girl?
Possibly.
Was it, or was it not, your influence?
Yes, it was. I didn't like her manner. She'd impertinently made use of our name, although she pretended afterwards it was simply the first one that she'd heard of. Afterwards, when I got at the truth, I discovered that she had no claim to the name, that she wasn't married, and the story she told about a husband who deserted her was quite false. So it didn't take me long to get the truth, or some of the truth, out of her.
And why did she want help?
You know very well why she wanted help.
No, I don't. I know why she needed help, but as I wasn't there, I don't know what she asked of your committee.
I don't think we need to discuss it.
You have no hope of not discussing it, Mrs. Burling.
If you think you can bring any pressure to bear upon me, Inspector, then you're quite mistaken. Unlike the other three, I have done nothing that I'm ashamed of, or that won't bear investigation. The girl came to us for assistance. We were asked to look carefully at the claims made upon us. I wasn't satisfied with her claim. She seemed to me to be not a good case. And so I used my influence to have it refused. And in spite of what's happened since, I consider I did my duty. So, if I prefer not to discuss it any further, Inspector, you have no power to make me change my mind.
Yes, I have.
No, you haven't, simply because I have done nothing wrong, and you know it.
I think you did something terribly wrong. Something that you'll be regretting for the rest of your life. You could have been with me earlier and seen the girl in the infirmary.
No, I've imagined that enough already.
Well, next time you imagine it, just remember this. That young girl was going to have a child.
How horrible. How could she have wanted to kill herself?
Because she'd been turned out and turned down so many times, this was the end.
Mother, you must have known.
It was because she was going to have a child that she went to your mother's committee for help.
Look here. This wasn't Gerald Croft, was it?
No, nothing to do with him.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Although I'm not sure why I should care now.
So you've nothing further to tell me, eh?
I'll tell you what I told her. Go and find the father of the child. It's his responsibility.
It's nonetheless your responsibility. She came to you when no woman could have wanted help more. You not only refused that help, you saw that others refused it too. Here she was, alone, desperate, penniless. She needed more than money. She needed sympathy, advice, and friendship. You've had children of your own, Mrs. Burling. You must have known how she was feeling. And you slammed the door in her face.
Mother, I think what you did was cruel and vile.
And I must say, Sybil, if this should come out at the inquest, it's not going to look very good, is it? The papers are bound to pick it up.
Oh, stop it, both of you. And just remember before you start accusing me that it wasn't I who had her turned out of her employment, which probably began it all. In the circumstances, I feel I was justified. The girl had begun by telling us a pack of lies. And afterwards, when I got to the truth, well, I discovered that she knew who the father was all along. She was quite sure about that. And so I told her it was her business to make him responsible. If he refused to marry her, and in my opinion he should be compelled to, well then he should at least support her.
And what did she reply to that?
Oh, some sort of silly nonsense.
What was it?
Whatever it was, it made me finally turn against her. Goodness me, she was claiming elaborate airs and graces. She was claiming fine feelings and scruples that were simply absurd in a girl in her position.
Her position now is that she lies with a burnt-out inside on a slab.
Now listen, Inspector,
And
that's
don't
why-
stammer at me again, man. I'm losing patience with all of you people. What did she say?
She said that the father was just a youngster, silly and wild and drinking too much. There was no question of their marrying. It would be quite wrong for both of them. She said that he'd given her some money, but that she didn't want to take any more from him.
Well, why didn't she want to take any more money from him?
Oh, a lot of silly nonsense. I didn't believe a word of it.
I'm not asking if you believed it. I'm asking you why she didn't take the money.
She had some fancy reason, as if a girl like that would ever refuse money.
I'm warning you, Mrs. Burling, you're only making matters worse for yourself. Why didn't she take the money?
Her story was that he'd said something one night when he was drunk that made her think that it wasn't his money.
But where had he got it from?
He'd stolen it.
So she came to you for help because she didn't want to take stolen money.
That's the story she told after I'd refused to believe her original story, which was that she was a married woman whose husband had deserted her. Well, I saw no reason to believe that that story was any truer than the original. Therefore, Inspector, you're quite wrong to suppose that I shall regret what I did.
But if her story was true, if this boy was giving her stolen money, then she came to you for assistance to stop this boy getting into any more trouble. Isn't that so?
Possibly. It sounded ridiculous to me. So I was quite justified in advising my committee not to allow her claim for assistance.
You're not even sorry now, are you? Even when you know what happened to the girl.
I'm sorry it should all have come to such a horrible end, but I accept no blame for it at all.
Well, then who is to blame?
Firstly, the girl herself.
What? Her father and I, having her chucked out of her job?
And secondly, I blame the young man who was the father of her child. If, as she said, he wasn't of her class, that he was some drunken young idler, well then all the more reason why he shouldn't escape. He should be made an example of. If the girl's death is due to anybody, it's due to him.
And if he was stealing money, what then?
Well, there's no point in assuming that.
But suppose we do. What then?
Well, then he would be entirely to blame, because the girl wouldn't have come to us and been refused assistance if it hadn't been for him.
So, he's the chief culprit.
Certainly. And he should be dealt with most severely.
Mother, stop!
Be quiet, Sheila.
But don't you see?
Sheila, you're behaving like an hysterical child tonight. And if you would take steps to find this young man and make sure he's compelled to confess in public his responsibility, instead of staying here asking us quite unnecessary questions, then I consider you would be doing your duty.
Don't worry, Mrs. Burling. I shall be doing my duty.
I'm glad to hear it.
No hushing up, eh? Make an example of. Public confession of responsibility from this young man, eh?
Certainly. I consider it your duty. Now, no doubt, you'd like to say good night.
Not yet. I'm waiting
Waiting for what?
to do my duty.
Now, Mother, don't you see?
But surely, it's not possible.
Wait a minute, Inspector. Surely you're not suggesting that my boy is mixed up in all of this?
Well, if he is, we know what to do, don't we? Mrs. Burling's just told us, hasn't she?
But then, my God!
I don't believe it.